Hello, hello. That's it. Well, welcome to our class this afternoon, and I'm so glad that I'm starting to get used to your names. And I can say, yes, I nearly know everyone's names here, and I'm thankful for that. And it's been good to get to know you over these weeks. I mean, we started right back in February, I think it was. Yeah, right back in the hot weather. And now we get back into the cold weather, aren't we? Yeah. Okay, our very first classes, remember, obviously, were practice and practical. And then I did some follow-up classes. And the follow-up classes, the first one was on the 8 laws of health. And these are the laws of health. I don't believe they're optional. If you decide not to do one, your health will break down. So you need to look at those. They are simple yet extremely profound. Okay. If you want to watch any of these past talks, you can go online and you can check them because they've all been recorded and they're all online. So, New Start was the first one, or the 8 laws of health. And what diet do we promote, or do I promote? It's a whole food, plant-based diet. I do, and I've told you many times, I'm a vegan vegetarian, but vegan vegetarians can eat very unhealthily. So I just want to specify that it's a whole food, plant-based diet that I'm actually proposing is the best diet for us. Okay, I'll talk to you about the China study, about how Dr. Colin Campbell was set out to find out the cause of cancer, and he found out, and it was animal protein or meat. And also milk protein was involved in it too. I talked to you about the fungal disease link. We talked about fungus and mold and how bad that is. And so many of us have got candida, and it's a problem that is really relevant to us today. So if you want to go back onto your past programs, look at these, you're welcome to. Excitotoxins, that was another one, which I'm sure surprises a lot of people because they don't realise that these additives that are in there, almost every single food that is in your supermarket is going to break down your health. So you have to realise, and they actually kill brain cells too. So just remember that, go back over that one. And last time I talked to you about the gut-brain connection and how what we eat affects our microbiome. Today's talk is on electrosmog. And do you know what? For years, I put off getting this talk together because I actually I knew a little bit, but I didn't know enough facts. How do you find facts out to present to people? And it was quite hard. But since then, I've decided, I looked online and I did a short course by some guy who was doing it. He taught me so much. But this electrosmog, it's everywhere. Obviously, it's everywhere. Let's now look at what are EMFs and how they affect us. This obviously is not a comprehensive study. You can go and you can do lots and lots more, but knowledge is power. Once you get and you understand what's involved in it, where we get electrosmog from, you will realise that you can, it will become power for you. Okay, nobody will deny that there is a chronic disease epidemic. Everywhere you go, people are sick. Okay, more than half Americans, and I might add Australians and Westerners, have at least one chronic disease, mental illness or problem with drugs or alcohol. 43% of US children have one chronic disease. Think of overweight, obesity, or being risk for developmental delays are also included. And 1 out of 3 adults worldwide suffers from more than one chronic disease. So many people are sick and are on drugs. Okay, now there is a health symptoms epidemic. Okay, first of all, we look at the depression that's coming around. Where is the depression coming from? It is increased in the past 5 years, 33%. Anxiety, poor sleep, insomnia, loneliness, all of these things that obviously they were there years ago, but not to the degree that they are here now. What is making so many people sick? What is the root cause? And I'll put these together and I think, these are just some of them. Toxic chemicals, processed foods, lack of exercise, mold exposure, nutrient deficiencies, poor relationships, trauma, infections, parasites, autoimmunity, allergies, Fukushima. Who's thinking of the radiation that is still leaking from Fukushima, which all of a sudden you hear nothing about it in the mainstream news, but it's still leaking into the environment, into the atmosphere.
They say you mustn't eat the fish coming from the sea.
Okay. Lack of sunshine and poor quality air. Now that's just some of them. There's more. Now I'm going to share with you a few snippets from Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt. Now, Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt is one of the most foremost of doctors who are treating people who are very sick. And he's tying them into electrosmog. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about him in a little while. But listen to a statement he made. He said, the average patient we see has seen 23 other practitioners before me. So it's obviously that somebody has overlooked something. And the most common overlooked thing in the healing puzzle is exposure to electrosmog. He actually has a clinic in America as well as in Germany, and he just flies backwards and forwards. He did before the COVID. I don't know what's happening now, and he just said he is a big proponent of electrosmog is the problem around us. Okay, now a different doctor, and all these doctors I'm just mentioning to in this first brief few slides are all very, very loud, and they're saying the problem with a lot of us is electrosmog. Wi-Fi is a huge issue. I try to minimise it as much as I can. I believe 100% of us are somewhat susceptible to EMF damage, and we're experiencing a spectrum of it. EMFs are so excitatory and so damaging to our brains because, after all, we are electrical beings. That's Dr. Ben Lynch. And this is Dr. Zach Bush. I see EMF sensitivity very frequently in my clinic, even though the first time I heard it from patients, I didn't believe it at all. But in the last 6 years alone, I have seen so many patients that are so well documented now as far as their EMF toxicity. EMFs play a role in all patients. We need to minimise all stresses to empty their toxic stress buckets, and EMF contribute to filling it. Dr. Dan Pomper. So they're just some of the doctors who are into this type of research, and they're looking at it and they realise it. The fact number one, I want us to realise that electrosmog is missing from most practitioners' healing puzzle and most functional medicine educational programs, but top doctors know it matters. It is a real thing. Now, I want you to have a good look at this. Now, you may not be able to see it as clearly as I hope, but I want you to look. This here are the Wi-Fi hotspots of cell phone towers in 2002 and 2018. Now, I want you to have 2018. Now, I want you to have a look here. In North America, you can see all those little purple areas. And over here in Europe, you'll see there's just a few in Germany, but virtually none in the rest of the world. Now, that was 2002. Now, my next slide is 2016 to 2017. Can you see the difference?
Wait, what about Australia?
Okay. Now, I went on. When I saw this and I was going through this talk, I looked online and I thought, oh, now you mightn't be able to see very clearly, but I also saw it says WiggleNet, WIGLE.net. That was the website. And I looked on and I found some more maps. This is very recent. But you had to pay a subscription to download it, didn't you? And I just took a photo of the screen. Okay, so it's not as clear as the other one, but look, that is current. Look back there, that was 2016 and that was 2002. So let's say in the past 20 years, that's what it is in the world. So obviously those yellow spots are really high density hot spots. Now this one here is Australia, and I checked, and if you look, you may not be able to see clearly, but the only yellow spots are around the capital cities. The other parts, and you look out in the middle of Australia, there's virtually none. And I just might add, it's quite interesting when you go to these and you look in here, in the middle of the ocean, there are many dots. They've got Wi-Fi hotspots in the middle of the ocean. I'm amazed when I saw them. There's quite a number of them. You can see them clearly when you're up closer on the screen. Okay, now this particular slide, I'm not explaining the graph to you, but I want you to look at a number on this slide. It says the typical daily human exposure over time of natural and man-made radio frequency electromagnetic power densities, and this is what happens. Over 100 years ago, we have had a 1 in, with 18 zeros behind it, increase in exposure to EMFs. Now, how you pronounce that number is you say it's a quintillion. Quintillion has 18 zeros after it. So we have 1 quintillion more exposure to EMFs than they did 100 years ago. Okay, so the fact number 2, our exposure to electrosmog has increased exponentially, especially in the last 2 decades, and it's only the tip of the iceberg. Now, I want to just share something here with you. We've got the Federal Communications Commission, which it says it's a guideline for evaluating the environmental effects of radio frequency radiation. Now, this is when it was, you may just be able to see it, but it is August the 1st, 1996, and it has never been updated since then. So that is what they are saying. This is the safety guidelines that was established in 1996, and it's never been changed. Okay, now how cell phones are tested. They use a mannequin, a plastic mannequin, filled the head with water, salt and sugar. It's not a brain, it's an actual brain, so they don't use a brain. And then they put the cell phone maybe 5 centimetres to 5 millimetres to 15 millimetres away. And they expose it to 6 minutes. And then they found that's their safety. That's what they're using as their baseline to set their safety research data on. But how do people actually use it? How many little children, 4-year-olds, in 2015, 75% of 4-year-olds own their own mobile device. Now, how many times have you seen little kids like this playing with their mobile devices? They're toddlers and they know how to work the phones. Children's heads will absorb up to 2 times the radiation compared to adults. Their bone marrow can absorb up to 10 times more. And when tested on the body, with no separation of cell phones, they exceed the FCC radiation limits of up 9-fold. And the average cell phone user in 2018 used the device for more than 5 hours a day. Now, is there credible science? Well, the ORSA, the ORSAA, they looked at 2,399 peer-reviewed papers published since the year 2014, and they said no. There is no credible EMF science. Depending on who put the paper out, it says that the studies funded by Telecom might be 10 times more likely to find no biological effect, which represents a bias 2.5 times worse than Big Pharma. And so so the research you get out there, you will not find credible research out there. Now, fact number 3, current EMF safety standards are deprecated, greatly influenced by the telecom industry, and do not protect any user, patient, client against overexposure to electrosmog. Okay, let's look at some definitions. We've got electromagnetic fields. We've got electromagnetic radiation. We've got non-native EMFs. We've got frequency in hertz. We've got number of cycles per second. Think of it as radio channels of an EMF. And wavelength, your spatial period of a wave, your distance over which the wave's shape repeats. The higher the frequency, the lower the wavelength. And if you're like me, that passes over the top of your head. It really doesn't make too much sense to me because I have not at all, but that's the information that's given there. So, and if you look at the electromagnetic spectrum, you'll find up this end, there's MRIs, there's power lines, there's AM and FM TV, there's TV, there is wireless, they're going across, there is satellite, there is, heat lamps, there is daylight. Then we get on over here to the left where we find tanning, and we also get the medical and the nuclear. Now, this over here is still harmful to us, this radiation. But this radiation actually alters your DNA. It breaks your DNA. This one doesn't do that, but it is all harmful. But that obviously over the other side is exceptionally harmful. Okay, radio frequency is also called microwave radiation. Now, where do we get it from? Most people think it's just in your cell phone. Yes, but it's also in your cell phone towers or antennas. It's also your Wi-Fi. It's also your Bluetooth. It's from your microwave ovens as well. It's from your cordless phones, and I didn't realise this. For years I had a cordless phone, and I often used to wonder why I used it, and when I put my phone down, my head felt hot. I didn't know that. I had no idea. Baby monitors. And what do the young mothers think they're doing such a wonderful job having a baby monitor in? Electricity or smart meters. You know the meter on the outside of your box, of your house? Your wearables, your watches and your bands and your headphones and all those things, they would tell you, oh, that tells you how many beats your heart's done per minute or whatever. And then those smart house sensors, your virtual assistant, Alexa and all those, and your thermostats, they also too can affect you. And this is the most studied type of EMF, especially your mobile phones. But in 2011, it was listed as a class 2 possible carcinogen in exactly the same category as cigarette smoke. Wow. And it's the fastest increasing type of EMF, contributes the most to the ambient electrosmog seen in densely populated areas. And it goes through most materials except certain metals, like tin foil.
Yes. I've got Faraday fabric as well.
Yes. Okay, now you measure it with a little meter, which I've got a little meter here, and I want to share later with you some of the EMFs that we can detect in there. So you can get a little meter, and it can detect different exposure sites in your room. Okay, now we know right in 1980s, then the 90s, then the 2000, 2010, 2020, we've gone from 1G right through to the 5G. And what are they doing to us? Now, that was one form. Remember, the radio, microwave from your cell phones and all those other things. But now we've got something else, and this really stunned me, that we've got magnetic fields that can be harmful to us as well. And you can find them around in power lines, chargers for electronics. So that means if you're charging up your phone and you've got the charger right next to you, you're being exposed to a magnetic field. A circuit breaker panel, transformers and motors, wiring errors or currents on water pipes. So you can find them. And sometimes you can find them, these magnetic fields. I can walk around with this meter and I can find magnetic fields in the house and you don't even realise they're there. Okay, and these are the second most studied types of EMFs, especially exposure to high voltage power lines and occupational exposure. And it too is a class 2 possible carcinogen since 2002. And they said doubling in leukemia risks at 3 to 4 milligas. So if you actually have a little bit more of this, you can easily get leukemia. But this usually drops off to a safe level a few feet from the source, except high voltage power lines. Have you ever been in a car with the radio on and you go under power lines and you get all the static? That's telling you that you've got electromagnetic field around it. And you measure this with a Gauss meter, which my sister Nola has one of these, and she's been quite handy with it to working out where we've got problems in the house. Electric fields. Now, this is something else that most people are not aware of. This is in your household wiring. This is in power strips. This is in ungrounded electronics. This is in lamps and lighting, and this is in cords and chargers. Now, I can actually walk with this to a PowerPoint, and I can have it registered, and I haven't got the PowerPoint is not on. But I can go over there, and all of a sudden, as I get it closer to the PowerPoint, all of a sudden, it goes off as it goes beeps. Yeah. Absolutely amazing when you realise how, and in cords. Many people don't realise that those electric cords that are running around the room have an electric field around them. Some of them may have a magnetic field, but the electric field, and those power cord, the strips, those power strips that we buy and you can plug all those appliances into it, they are very, very high in this electrical field. And so this is the most important EMF to reduce at home, especially in your bedroom. So if you've got those power strips in your bedroom, get rid of them. If you've got proximity to these fields, seem to have an important and detrimental effect on deep sleep. And you can measure it in the air. You can measure the EMF meters in volts per meter or in the body, which is you measure in millivolts. And you can actually have one of these, which I've got. Nola's got me one of them, and I haven't. I don't know how to work it. I've forgotten how to work it, but I know when I did work it, I could see, yes, it did. I knew that it was, as I was touching something, as I was earthing, the whole thing would, you wouldn't register anymore. Okay, there's another thing we can come across is dirty electricity. And that is your complex fluorescent lights. Now, they're your fluorescent bars, and those curly fluorescent lights are very, very high in emitting dirty electricity. And if you have those in your light bulb, in your bed lamp, you've got these curly electricity bulbs, you're getting a lot of dirty electricity field coming out. You can get it in dimmer switches, you can get it in solar panel inverters. Now, we've got solar on our house, we've got solar panels on the roof, and I can walk with my little meter behind the wall where the solar panel is on the outside of the house. On the inside of the house, it's our laundry. And I can just go in there and I can put this up there and it just goes crazy on the inside of my room where the solar panels are mounted on the outside of my house.
How far does that travel in? Have you checked?
Yes, it does. It travels in, but it drops off after some while. Look, I can't remember exactly, but it does drop off after a while. Charges for electronics, your smart TV and countless modern electronics. And I don't know why everybody has to have a smart TV. To me, what for? Yeah, I agree. I haven't switched the television on for months, and I'm not interested. I don't miss it at all. I love it. I love the television-free house. It's great. Now, dirty electricity, there are very few studies available so far, but they do affect us, right? And Dr. Klinghardt has seen incredible results in patients with Parkinson's or other nervous system disorders when dirty electricity is reduced. And they say you can often mitigate it by plugging in a filter. You buy these expensive filters, and they said, they mitigate it. Now, those filters can cost anything, but some of them are like $1,000, and you put them in the PowerPoints, and they said that mitigates them through the house. Now, I don't know for sure, and I'm sure they work somewhat, but can I tell you, one woman that I went into a house, she said, you don't need to worry, I've got the filters. And I went into a house and I used this, and her Wi-Fi her electromagnetic frequencies went off the board. Okay, they were still there. So don't rely on them. You've got to get rid of the source. Yeah, they might be a help, but you've got to get rid of the source. And to measure dirty electricity, you need expensive equipment. There is another sort of geopathic stress, which we're not going on to, but some people are so sensitive, they've got to worry about where they're sleeping in a house. It's caused by water veins, fault lines, tectonic movement, Hartmann line or Curry lines, which I'm not going into touching on that. But these are problems for some people. Others are geopathic stress, which you've got to measure on. And in people who are really interested, they get their houses tested. Where should they put their beds and all that sort of thing. Okay, and then there's artificial light. Now, there's different wavelengths of artificial light. Just have a look at that one. That's daylight. Then look at the incandescent. Now, incandescent is our old bulbs we used to use, and they are a lot safer than the ones now. That's a fluorescent over on the right. The halogen, the cool light, and your fluorescent curly lights.
What about LED lights?
I haven't got them here. I can't tell you, but I don't think they're that much good either.
They're supposed to be bad.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. They've tried to move us away. Did you notice the safest one was the ones we used to have? Okay, yes, if you do buy them, they're very expensive, okay? Artificial light, we need modern electronics like cell phones and tablets emit light peaks in the blue range, and these are detrimental on your body. And we know from people, you've heard people who are shift workers, how their health can really suffer because they're not getting the light into their retinas of their eyes. And it affects your blood, your heart, the autonomic nervous system. And the symptoms of electrohypersensitive is best described as rapid aging syndrome experienced by adults and children, and that resembles symptoms experienced by radar operators in the 1940s to the 1960s and well described in literature. Now, this is not something new. They knew this back in the 1940s to 1960s. They were doing a lot of work with radar, and they knew it. An increasing common response includes clumping or rouleau formation of the red blood cells, heart palpitations, pain or pressure in the chest accompanied by anxiety, and an upregulation of the sympathetic nervous system coincident with a downregulation of the parasympathetic nervous system, typical of the flight or fight response. Now, Dr. Magda Havas, PhD, she's from Canada, and she's done a lot of research on the electromagnetic frequency. And she said, now you have a look at this one. The top sample, number 1, is healthy blood cells, and they're supposed to float around freely and that. But look on the bottom left-hand side. This is blood from the same person after speaking on a cordless phone for 10 minutes. And this one, number 3, is blood from the same person after using a wired computer for 70 minutes. And look at that. I mean, we always thought, oh, wired computers are safer than Wi-Fi ones, but they still affect you. And she says this is a summary of 10 studies that looked at the effect of people near mobile phone base stations or cell towers. Okay. Fatigue, sleep disturbances, headaches, feeling of discomfort, difficulty concentrating. Who has that, you know? Depression, memory loss, visual disruptions, irritability, hearing disruptions, skin problems, cardiovascular, dizziness, loss of appetite, movement difficulties, and nausea. Now here, this is an interesting one. This is Dr. Havas. She said they did some microwave radiation affecting the heart and autonomic nervous system. And she conducted these experiments using, and the subjects were exposed to cordless phone, and they wanted to find out if they would react with tachycardia or arrhythmia. And what she said here, they did about 30 people, and most people didn't react, and that was the top line. Most people had just a very stable heart rhythm right through. But the bottom line were the ones who were highly responsible. They had a normal heart rhythm. Then all of a sudden their heart went erratic when they were exposed to the phone. Then they were gone back to normal. Then they were erratic again when they were exposed to the phone. And they said it coincided exactly to when they switched on and off the mobile phone or the phone signals. And this information is not new. Microwave radiation affects the central nervous system, and it was discovered in 1969. Now, Wi-Fi routers emit a beacon signal that is continuous as long as the device is activated. You don't have to be connected to the internet to be exposed to the radiation generated. So if you've got a Wi-Fi router in your home, and I have one, I switch it off when I'm not using it. It's not hard on my modem to switch a button. And I don't use it that much because I've got a computer with an Ethernet cable in the back of it. So I purposely bought my computer that it had a cable which I could put in the back. But if you've got a Wi-Fi router in your home, switch it off when you're not using it. Especially overnight. Especially overnight. And she went on to say that in a Canada school, the students in schools with Wi-Fi are complaining of headaches, difficulty concentrating, weakness and heart palpitations. The Wi-Fi was taken out of the schools, they used cable connection, and the students got better. And she said this is what the same research compares with microwave illness from 1969. Pain in the head and eyes, weakness, weariness, dizziness, depression, antisocial tendencies and general irritability, impairment of memory and general mental function. Adenoma, now that is tumours are growing on your glands. They're they're not cancerous, they're just tumours that grow. Inability to make decisions, chest pain and heart palpitation, dyspepsia, epigastric pain and loss of appetite, sensitivity of mechanical stimulation and skin disorders, lacrimation, that's when your eyes get a lot teary, hypochondria, sense of fear, general tension, inhibition of sex in the male, scalp sensation and hair loss, trembling of eyelids, tongue and fingers, asthma and brittle nails. So look at them all. And these some who live 300 metres of a cell phone tower base station. And sometimes if you've got just a Wi-Fi router in your house, it's really acting as a television, as a phone base station, and it's doing the same to your whole phone, whole area in your house. Headaches, visual disruption, dizziness and fatigue, depression, irritability, memory loss, difficulty concentrating, it goes on the same. You can see them. They've got a few different symptoms, but basically you have the same problems. Now this is by a man called Ollie Johansson, and he is actually a professor, and he is one of the leading researchers on EMFs, and I think he's Swedish by memory. Oh, he's one of the Scandinavian countries, I think it was Swedish. But he shows EMFs linked to dermatitis and skin rashes. Goes back to the 1970s. Linked with decrease in sperm cell count, motility and viability, and also female fertility. The immune system is severely damaged. Allergic reactions increased. Bacteria exposed became antibiotic resistant and also gut dysbiosis. And this is interesting because he had a study from Greece, and this was published in 1997. Mice were subject to low radiation and very low radiation from distant antennas. They checked oncoming generations of mice. Nothing happened in the first, second, third, or fourth generation, but in the fifth generation they saw irreversible infertility. This study was checked a number of times for inaccuracies, but it was found to be very accurate. And Johansson is amazed at the colossal numbers of papers published showing the dangers of EMFs, but no one seems to talk about it. And he said in Germany alone there are 26,000 papers published. Nobody talks about them. Dr. Victoria Dunkley, she links screen time with brain and health development, especially in children. She sees the detrimental effect of screen time has on mental health and behaviours in children. And she has a program that shows limiting screen time in children is the best pill for ADHD, anxiety and behavioural disorders. For 4 weeks, they have no interactive screen time, nothing whatsoever. And after 4 weeks, the brain does a reset and the brain is allowed to get deep rest because that all stimulation has been removed. And I found her talk very interesting when I listened to it. But back to Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt. Look, I love his research because he treats very, very sick patients. But if he agrees to take a person on as a patient, he says to them, I will only take you on if you have no EMF exposure. So he won't take them on if they don't get rid of the EMFs in their house. And how do they have to do that? Because he said, as a 16-year-old boy, he said he remembers he was in science class in Germany in school, and he had a teacher who was a very, very smart scientific man, and he says this man actually invented some big jet engine or some engine like that. And so his science teacher taught him that you watch down the track years' time, there will be electromagnetic fields would create unprecedented health problems in the future. And so as a doctor, he remembered this. So he did a study that showed autistic children's mothers, when they were pregnant, slept in a 20-fold higher electromagnetic field and incoming microwave cell phone radiation. And sometimes, he said, the mothers would have to go back to homes. They'd moved out to them, but they went back in there and they checked how much radiation was in the bedroom. The membranes around the womb concentrate the ambient electromagnetic field. Actually, I miss one? Cell phone radiation and Wi-Fi router published outside a pregnant mother concentrates 20-fold in the womb. And this is a published study. So you've got all these pregnant women playing with mobile phones, don't realise the damage is going on into their baby because it concentrates the ambient electromagnetic field. And he is having so much success in treating autistic children by minimising exposure to electromagnetic fields. A Swedish study showed the incidence of Alzheimer's patients directly correlates to high cell phone radiation. He teaches that by using microwave frequency of 2.4 gigahertz is the same frequency which sterilises people over 2-3 generations, and this was discovered in England in the 1960s. And this is the same frequency that all Western countries use to drive cell phone system. Matter of fact, I haven't got anything. I've watched another talk by Dr. Barry Trower. He's an English scientist who was trained in microwave radiation for I don't know what it was, what armed forces. I can't remember whether it was the Air Force or the Navy or the Army or whatever. But he was trained in microwave radiation. And he says what they're doing in our schools, putting Wi-Fi in our schools, he said all of those young girls will have problems reproducing. He said it's known. And you go on, Barry Trower, very interesting. Okay, Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, more about it. He says you find it very hard to shield from the wavelengths that the police and fire departments use. And if you go around there, they have got so many aerials around their place. By using Wi-Fi router in your home can compare with a cell phone tower in your home. Most people are not aware of that. So switch it off when you're not in use. The incidence of breast and brain cancer increases when exposed to Wi-Fi routers because microwaves are killing trees. They are killing 80% of your insects. 75% of songbirds have died. And if you're not aware of that, check it out, because I've found there's plenty of research telling us that we are losing our nature. You even think we don't get near as many bugs around as we used to. There's nowhere near as many birds as flying around in the sky as there used to. Bees are not dying where there is no cell phone radiation. In the last 20 years, neurological disease in women has risen 663%. Now, these are just points I got from his talks. I would be writing along and I think, oh, that's an important talk, a point I can put in here. And he says people have not been told the truth, that their depression, that their insomnia, that their chronic illness is linked to this. And he says the Western world is collectively committing suicide. These devices are addictive, destroy your memory, higher thinking, critical thinking. Your offspring will be sicker and sicker. An experiment showed laying chickens exposed to EMFs calmed down when they used shielding devices. This was a whole poultry farm. But the study ran for 5 years and found that all the chickens with the cleaned up environment lived only half as long because they didn't clean up the source of the dirty electricity. You can't rely on stickers and pendants. You must stop the source of the EMFs. So don't just think, oh, that I'm safe because I'm wearing a pendant about my neck or I've got a pen or it's in my pocket. You've got to realise you're not necessarily safe. And we have a body that runs on electricity. Any heavy metals that we have stored in our tissue act as antennas for any man-made radiation, and our body acts like a receiver to the signals. You're right, vaccination, for sure. Aluminium is synergistic with glyphosate, which takes it straight to the brain, so we must avoid glyphosate. If people suffer with candida and are exposed to Wi-Fi, the microtoxins excreted by the bugs increases 600-fold. It is these that makes people sick. I want you to remember that point because I'm going to come back to it later. If you have Wi-Fi and have candida, 600-fold increase. Now, Dr. Klinghardt flew several of his chronically ill patients to a radio-silent zone in Brazil, a valley where you could get no phone service. He hypothesised that the patients would probably get better, but he never experienced what happened next. By day 5, a man who had chronic Lyme disease and chronic fatigue got out of his wheelchair and started walking. But it wasn't the only patient to experience a miracle recovery. All of his patients experienced life-changing benefits. Within 5 to 7 days, he told me, even the ALS patients were completely asymptomatic. And the amount of cell phone radiation in a cubic inch of air is now several million times higher than it was just 10 years ago. Communications inside the cell that transported signals from the cell wall to the DNA and backwards is disrupted. And here it has been shown that cell phone radiation exposure to a fetus tweaks a number of genes, exactly what we find in autistic kids. An increase in electromagnetic field exposure in pregnant women in combination with the growth-driving effect it has on the microbiome in us explains the incredible avalanche of children with neurodevelopmental disorders, not just autism that we're seeing right now. Now, Dr. Zach Bush, he's a different doctor, but he believes in repairing and rebuilding and healing the extracellular matrix with a mineral supplement. He says avoid foods grown with glyphosate, minimise exposure to electromagnetic fields and other man-made disruptors of biology like heavy metals. Your body must be well hydrated. You need to use a good quality water. That's it. Get your drink out and have a drink. Add electrolytes to water. Exercise. You need to get oxygen into your body. Avoid alcohol, avoid gluten, and don't forget to ground. So many people are not grounding. Grounding means you get your feet sometimes onto ground, sometimes you can ground on unpainted cement, but you're not to have rubber-soled shoes. You have to ground. And not only that, we find we are bombarded with it's not just mobile phones. It's your smart meters. It's all your appliances. Now, I've got a Thermomix at home, and I went like this. I went to my Thermomix, and it just went off the chart and went berserk when I got to the Thermomix. A very high electromagnetic field. So what do I do now? I still use all my appliances, but the moment I'm finished, I switch them off at the wall. Now, I don't, and it's still there. I don't normally pull the plug out, but you could if you wanted to. But switch them off on your wall. Okay, because our human body is reliant on its own electromagnetic field, and ultimately our existence is reliant upon electrochemical reactions. And so this is why we're having so much problem. We are electric beings, and so this is affecting our balance, all these EMFs. And our human body was not designed to deal with the explosion of the EMF activity. in the environment. In fact, the increased use of cell phones and other consumer electronics has been linked to the following dangerous health conditions: malignant and benign brain tumours, increased permeability of the blood-brain barrier. We've got adverse effects on neurotransmitters in the brain, resulting in mood swings, memory loss, difficulty learning, and stress. Okay, it leads to calcium ion leakage. A little bit more about that in a moment. Disruption in brain glucose metabolism linked to Alzheimer's, and disruption of melatonin production, which is a strong antioxidant, and thyroid dysfunction. Okay, protein changes in your skin. You excited your brain cells. You increase breaks in DNA that could not always be repaired. You've got brain cell damage, and you've aggressive growth in leukemia cells. So you've got all these problems. Increased blood pressure. Blood cells become disordered in shape and clumped together. And it's interesting, blood pressure. Nola was telling me her blood pressure goes sky high when she's exposed to it. When she goes out and stands on the ground, it just goes back to normal. Certain cells start producing so-called stress proteins. Some hormone production is reduced. Sperm cells become less mobile and fewer sperm cells are produced. Your DNA repair processes work less effectively, repair processes. But most of the damage is not apparent. It only appears years later. We won't see it. That's why it's gradual. And what a clever device of whoever has decided to put all this in place, because it's not instantaneous. You know, we don't see, people are not dropping over dead from it, but eventually they will. Now, I wanted to share this with you because I was given this. I want to share what about 5G? This is by J.E. Anti. 5G at 60 gigahertz resonates with the oxygen molecule and gives oxygen a reverse polarity that makes it much less usable to the human body. At high concentrations of 5G usage, you get suffocation of humans at street level. And at lower doses, you get flu-like symptoms, which are exactly the same symptoms as the flu with this lowered oxygen uptake by the body. Okay, now I ask you, what's happening now? Everybody is getting the flu. Well, very interesting. Just keep going, keep reading. But the way 5G kills is much more interesting. Our bodies have trillions of parasitic organisms inside which feed on us, and some say help us live by doing many useful functions. But when these bacteria, fungi and parasites are subjected to Wi-Fi microwave radiations, they are harmed and begin reproducing toxins in self-defense. Remember I told you before about those toxins? These organisms begin reproducing rapidly to ensure their survival. And so we get flu-like symptoms from these internal parasite organisms under attack from Wi-Fi microwave radiations, reproducing rapidly and excreting toxins. This is the real illness people are getting, not a bioweapon coronavirus. And that's what this man thinks.
I've read that before.
Yep.
That the 5G activates stuff.
Yeah.
The Chinese were dropping like flies.
Yes, that's right. 2G has 10 microwave frequencies assigned to it. 3G has 10 also. 4G has 5 frequencies with some overlaps. But 5G has 3,000 microwave frequencies assigned to it by the FCC. Why so many? So 5G should really be called 297G, not 5G. So with this 5G rollout in China, Korea, Italy, Iran, and cruise ships, we have the greatest concentration of 5G usage and greatest concentration of illness and death in the world. Our internal parasites are like canaries in a mine. and are being killed off rapidly from this 5G usage. When this happens too quickly, the body cannot get rid of the increased toxins, and the host, which is you, die from toxemia. Our human cells are all tied together and form a much stronger union, but our many parasitic hosts inside of us are much more isolated within us and are much more vulnerable to this Wi-Fi microwave radiation. They try to survive by multiplying rapidly and making toxins to protect them from harm, but it is no use, and they die with 5G. And their rapid death, our bodies, at least older and less healthy humans, are overwhelmed by toxins very quickly and die from the combined effects of lowered oxygen uptake from 5G and also from the massive overpopulation, and then die off from our internal biomass of germs and parasites, which creates overwhelming toxemia. And when the Chinese locked down the people in Wuhan, they turned their new 5G phones and internet connections, and so the city was flooded with much more 5G Wi-Fi radiation, and made many more people fall down sick and die. I've heard this often, that they believe it was the Wi-Fi combined with whatever that caused all those deaths. Many people even fell sick instantly at street level from oxygen deficiency, which previously had no sickness. A massive cloud of 5G 50 gigahertz microwave radiations caused oxygen in the air to fall below critical levels for survival. And yesterday, and I don't know if this has happened, but all of Asia turned off their 5G and left on only their 3G and 4G systems to communicate, so that they know 5G is the real cause of the illnesses. So turn off your smartphones, put them in an aluminium pouch, or you need to use them to lessen radiation exposure to yourself and to everyone else. This is the real thing you must do instead of washing your hands to protect others.
Yes.
And if you would heal your elderly and grandparents, put them in a Faraday cage where they will not be irradiated constantly by Wi-Fi signals that are all around us, especially in hospitals. Then the sick bodies may heal themselves in time as the toxemia clears from their bodies. And sickness is really, our bodies are toxic. We've got to get rid of the toxicity out of our body. Now, Dr. Martin Blank showed that EMF stimulates stress proteins, indicating an assault on the cell. Cells only make stress protein when they have come into contact with something they feel is potentially harmful. Simply put, the more fear or stress an organism perceives, the more energy it diverts for protection. And you stop and think of the fear-mongering that was being done on our whole society. A cell cannot be a state of growth and protection at the same time. When a species is threatened by environmental changes, reproduction is not an option. It makes no sense. Now, Dr. Martin Paul was a professor emeritus of biochemistry, and he is one of the leading experts on microwave radiation in the world. He says putting in all the 5G antenna without a simple biological test of safety has got to be about the stupidest idea anyone has had in the history of the world. He talked a lot about something called voltage-gated calcium channels. Now, they're little openings in our plasma membrane that surround our cells and are required for many key functions in the body. But the calcium levels outside the cells, and we've got to remember, outside the cells are carefully regulated and are about 10,000 times less than outside, I've got outside, than inside the cell. I think I've got it written wrong there, haven't I? Inside the cells than outside the cells. Now, voltage-gated calcium channels, Dr. Paul shows that all EMF, millimetre waves, microwaves, radio frequency, power wiring, static electrical fields and static magnetic fields all activate these voltage-gated calcium channels, and they open and allow large amount of calciums to flow into the cells. See, that calcium should not be in the cells, it should be in the matrix around the cells. If it goes into the cells, it triggers specific chemical effects in the cell, which creates a potent antioxidant that releases lots of free radicals, causing lots of damage, including breaking your DNA. And he was very big. His talk centered around these voltage-gated calcium channels. And I'd never heard of them before, but it makes sense to me. You've got to keep what's supposed to be inside the cells and what's supposed to be outside. And if you're opening up little entry channels to get calcium in your cells when they shouldn't be there, and hundreds of studies report changes in calcium fluxes or signal following microwave EMF exposure. This is a mechanism which has huge biological effects on our body. Remember, calcium is a healthy mineral, but too much inside the cell is the equivalent of pouring gas on a fire, and this will trigger a multitude of negative side effects. Now, he says, in summary, there is massive literature and research providing high level of scientific certainty for each of 8 pathopsychological, physiological effects caused by non-thermal microwave EMF exposure. Okay, you've got neurological or nervous problems. Attacks our nervous system and gives you sleep disturbances and insomnia. And I'm not going to read them all through. If you want to go back through them later, you can go through them. So you've got your nervous system. Then you've got your hormones. Now, how many people have got hormonal problems in the world? I tell you what, most women have got hormone problems, men too. Main thing that function differently from single-cell creature are our nervous systems and our endocrine systems. Even a simple planaria worm needs both of these. And exposure has widespread endocrine, that is hormonal effects. They produce oxidative stress, which is an imbalance of free radicals and antioxidants in the body, which lead to cell and tissue damage of all other chronic diseases. They attack our DNA. And so what they call the strands, which lead to cancer and mutations for future generations. So it's not just us. It's for young women who have got childbearing children, and it's for their kids. It elevates apoptosis. Now that is when you have programmed cell death, and they are cause of the neurodegenerative diseases, and they lower reproductive, although there are others. So we don't want high apoptosis. They lower the fertility rates. Lower male and female fertility. I mean, you'd have to be blind if you can't see that women nowadays are having problems reproducing. Human sperm cell count has dropped to below 50% in 50 years. Excessive calcium, cellular calcium, that's what I just talked about. What does that do? Well, the calcium levels inside the cells are carefully regulated about 10,000 times less than outside the cells. And they cause cancer. Okay, so you've got brain cancer, you've got salivary cancer, and especially if you've got your phone up near your face, guess what? You get cancer there. Or if you carry your phone in your pocket, you get cancer there where you're carrying your phone. And then more effects. You've got your cardiac effects, then you've got your dementia, and you've got your Alzheimer's, then you've got EMF exposure in utero, and shortly after birth can cause ADHD and autism. And not only that, they are cumulative. So they add up in your body. The more you've got, the more you have problems with all these things. And then nowadays we've got smart technology. Sometimes you want to buy any appliances way back before this was invented because you don't want all these things on it. I don't want all these things. And they're imposing on it. You've got smart homes, you've got businesses, you've got smart everything. Everything is smart nowadays. I'm not interested in smart. Not interested in smart. And we're going to a deeper sense of electrosmog. We're going to be bombarded by really high frequencies at low short-range intensities, creating even more electrosmog. Now I want to share with you a photo. This is a man who had decided that if you could see electromagnetic frequencies, this is what it would look like. Can you see the smog over the city?
Well, we see that anyway.
And he said if you could colour them in, this is what they would look like. But we can't see that, and we're walking through that all the time, and we don't realise it. Look at that one. That's in America. And if you live in a city, there would be no hope, because if you decide, oh, well, I'm not going to have it, but guess what? It's in your neighbours, in your high-rise apartments. You're never going to get away from it. Everywhere you go. You just got to really become a hermit in these days and just get out of the cities. That's my motto. Okay, now, remember I said it affects the skin. The human body has between 2 to 4 million sweat ducts, and these act like an array of helical antennas when exposed to these wavelengths. This means we will become more and more conductive. It affects the eyes, and guess what we are finding? How many people do you hear now have got cataracts, detached retinas, glaucoma, vitreous humours in the eye? And I'm hearing a lot more. There's an awful lot of people that are talking to me. How do I get rid of cataracts? Guess what? This is why. And Dr. Paul considers a great probability of a giant epidemic of blindness in the future. Because he said this, I'll just read the top one. It says a 1994 study found that low levels of microwave radiation produced lens opacity in rats, which is linked to the production of cataracts. Effects on the heart. And once again, in rats, it says it impacted the heart rates of variably in rats. Another Russian study showed frogs whose skin was exposed to microwave radiation found heart rate changes. Countless other studies linked to cardiovascular problems. Our immune system, okay, they said that it's going to affect it. Our immune system. Effect on our cell growth rates. An Armenian study observed the microwaves at a low intensity mirroring the future environment brought about by 5G. And a study conducted on E. coli and other bacteria stated that the waves had depressed their growth as well as changing the properties and activity of the cells. Now, what about plant health? What is it doing to nature? What is it doing to the bugs? What is it doing to the bees? What is it doing to all those? You've seen, I know some people may have seen on the clip, it went viral some time ago about they had some bees being exposed to 5G and how the bees just dropped dead. One aspect of 5G is that microwaves is particularly susceptible to being absorbed by plants and rain. Both humans and animals consume plants as a food source. The effect of microwave has on plants could leave us with food that's not safe to eat. Think GMO on steroids. And the water that falls from the sky to these plants will also be irradiated. A 2010 study on aspen seedlings shows that the exposure to radio frequencies led the leaves showing necrosis symptoms. Now, I've taken, since I do all this and I'm interested in this, I have taken special notice of some of our trees that are around there. They are sick. You can see some of them are exposed to radiation. You can see the side of the tree where it's very unhealthy, if not dead. The effects on the atmosphere and depletion of fossil fuels. I have no idea about that, but listen to this. In 1990s, the world averaged only 12 rocket launches per year, maintaining over 4,000 satellites with an expected lifespan of 5 years. It is estimated that there have been a total of 8,539 objects launched into space, with 4,994 still in orbit. Okay, and so what happens? Every rocket launch represents a tremendous degree of pollution to the Earth's atmosphere. So all that we can download, so that we can download a movie in 7 seconds instead of 7 minutes. And a disruption of the natural ecosystem. And since 2000, there have been reports of birds abandoning their nests, as well as the health issues like plumage deterioration, locomotion problems, reduced by survivorship and death. Bird species are affected by these low-level non-ionising radiation, but other species are affected, for instance, birds, insects, and your butterflies. And guess what they use it for? Crowd control. It might sound difficult to believe about the 5G frequencies, which will soon be blanketing our towns, have been under development for a number of years by the defence agencies, including the US, Russian and Chinese, as means of crowd control. And the US Army uses millimetre waves in crowd dispersal guns called active denial system. And some say if you're unlucky enough to be standing there when it hits you, you'll feel like your body is on fire.
Well, that's what they had. People with huge fever blisters on their mouth.
Yeah, I heard about that. 5G antennas will be very close. 5G smaller antennas will be very, very close and very numerous. It's not like the old 4G ones. High-frequency millimetre waves are super fast but cannot travel a long distance. Plus, they don't travel well through buildings, so the necessary infrastructure will require many smaller, barely noticeable cell phone towers situated close together on a lamppost and light poles in your street. Remember, distance is your new best friend. Keep away from them. Look, here's a picture of some of them, although I think they're the bigger. I think they've got even smaller ones around now. Look what they do in some places. They disguise them. That's not even a tree. It's just a pretend tree. They've got it looking as if it's a tree. It's a fake tree.
Taking them down.
Yeah.
Smashing them. Yeah.
Okay, now let's look at some ways to protect ourselves. Let's say if you've got a cell phone. Text and don't talk if you can do it. Use a headset or speaker when you do. You need to talk to keep your device further from your head and body. Use an air tube headset. Now, I'm not sure where I did with my phone. I think I left it in my bag here. I'll just see if I can grab it. Yeah. So it's obvious it's best if you can just talk out here, not to put it up closer to your ear. Air tube headsets, go online if you can still buy them. I don't know if you can still buy them, but they've got air in there and they're a lot safer than normal headsets. If you carry your cell phone close to your body, such as a pocket, put it in airplane mode. Only use your cell phone when your signal is strong. Avoid unnecessary exposure time. Now, my mobile phone, we go out and stay with a son-in-law and daughter, and they've got very poor mobile reception in where they live. It's out near Bright. And so when I take my mobile phone out there, it goes nearly flat overnight because it's trying to search all the time, trying to pick up mobile phone reception. So you really need to understand that. So you need to be aware of it, especially if you're in a place that you'd think it'd be safe. Oh, there's not much mobile phone coverage out here, but it's emitting more radiation than it would if it was inside in somewhere where there's lots of coverage. Only use your cell phone when your signal is strong and avoid unnecessary exposure time. Avoid using cell phone in a moving vehicle. Don't carry phones on your body. And whatever you do, don't sleep with your cell phone next to you on your bedside table. And how many young teenagers are sleeping with it under their pillow?
They've got their meditation coming.
Unplug all your devices in your bedroom. Don't use cordless phones in your bedroom. Eliminate compact fluorescent lights. Eliminate dirty electricity. Remove Wi-Fi routers in your home. And if you can't do that, and I understand, we're living in a place where you've got family who use your Wi-Fi, and they'd probably go on strike if you said no more Wi-Fi. So you've just got to work with it the best you can. So my suggestion is try to switch it off when it's not in use. And it's not hard with the routers nowadays. Some people used to take minutes and 10 minutes to reset up, but not anymore, just one little switch. Okay, remove all your electrical appliances and your blankets and your alarm clock. And I'm amazed. I was talking to somebody only very recently, and she says, she didn't realise having an alarm clock, electric alarm clock right next to a bed was emitting anything. I said, now get it away from your head. Get it. We've got our alarm clock on the other side of the room because we have to get one with larger numbers now, but that's all right. But at least it's on the other side of the room. It's not right next to my bed. And we used to have those touch lamps that you just touch and they'd come on. Well, they emit stuff, so we just got ourselves regular ones again. And we don't have an electric blanket anymore, But if you're going to use an electric blanket, switch it off when you get in bed and unplug it. Have to be aware of all these things. Other ways to protect yourself. Ground your computer. Now, how do you ground your computer? Use wired mouse. I'll just go through there. I'd still use my wired mouse, although I know I've got a little one that I use when I'm going around because it's so inconvenient. But at home, I use all wired mouse and I use an Ethernet cable, and I've disabled my Wi-Fi, and I don't use your laptops on your body. And I think they've purposely told people a laptop is fine, you can sit it on your lap. Use on battery powered, charge up after use at a distance from everyone. So when you're using it, it's best not to use it with you can use it just using it as without being charged up. You can charge it up later when it's away from you. Remember, distance is your friend. Yes, you can charge things up, but keep them away from you. Think about shielding your smart meters. Okay, now these are Faraday cages. You can make them. You can look up how you can buy them. This one's called smartblock.com.au. I just got that off the internet. And you can make them. You make them out of aluminium gauze. Just put it around, and you can, as long as you cover them, you can actually have. If you've got a meter box outside the wall, when you've got it right inside, that can be very dangerous and can be emitting a lot of radiation. So you can get paint that you actually paint, and you get it online, and you can paint it, and so then you put a little wire and you ground that paint into the earth or into a power socket, and you can paint over the top of it, your normal coloured paint. You don't have to leave it that colour, but you can do it like that. That's another way. I know people who are renovating, they decided that they would do that because their meter box is right outside their kitchen where you're doing all the work. And ways to protect ourselves. Use an earthing mat. And you can have a sheet for sleeping. Now, I've brought here, this is an earthing mat. And I use this under my computer keyboard. And so when I'm using it, my hands are sort of resting on it. So that means when I'm on the computer, I'm earthing all the time. Now what that has got, it's got some sort of a thread through it. It's got a fine cord, and the cord goes in to your power socket. But if you look at the top 2 prongs, they are plastic. They're not metal. The only one that you are activating is the earth socket. So you're connecting to your earth socket that is in your household wiring. So that is your earth. And so that is an earthing mat. Now the same principle, you can have them on the floor. You can put your feet on them. You can have a little one like this under your keyboard. I can't remember. I think these were, when we got them, they were about $60, weren't they? Something like that. I can't tell you how much they are. They're not cheap. Nothing like this is cheap. Can you, wait, just hold it. Can you use a microphone too when you're saying things? We get the microphone ready in a minute. Waldina, can we get that ready? But anyhow, I've nearly finished. Touch the earth with your hands. Walk around barefoot without rubber soles. Touch your earth with hands or feet, and more with the wet grass is better. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that the earthing plug it doesn't have to be switched on.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
It plugs into the earth. You've got an earthing wire on your plug.
True.
So you don't have to switch the power point on.
You don't switch the power point on.
No.
It's just plugged in. Touch the earth with your hands or feet. More on the wet grass is better. Earth each day for 60 minutes increases your magnesium in the blood and mineral regulation. And after 20 minutes, body inflammation decreases. So it's best to do 20 to 30 minutes a day.
You can't in winter, it's too cold.
You're right there. But you could actually earth with socks on.
Yeah, you could.
You could. It's the rubber-soled shoes that we have problems with. After 20 minutes, okay, I read that. Multiple sclerosis patients need to earth 16 hours a day.
Wow. 16 hours a day.
Yeah. You can buy protective clothing. You can buy T-shirts. You can buy blankets, laptop shields, sleeping bags, curtains, bed canopies, hats, many different forms of protection. And you've got to know how to put these on. I mean, you can a sheet and all those sort of things. But if you had curtains and all that sort of thing, you've got to know how to put them on. There's a specific way to be done. Because if you put them on wrong, you can actually increase your EMF in your body than decrease them. Okay, but your emraustralia.com.au is just one I found. You can go on anyone. I don't know if there's more there that you've got. But it has a silver thread running through it. Okay, so this brings us to a point. How can we escape these? I'll talk about that in a moment, because I've got mine here. I'll talk about that in a moment. Okay, how can we escape these? What if we have to work in a high EMF environment? You've really got no hope if you're really subject to this. What do we do? Do you know what? We can only do the best we can. I really don't know what's said. I look at this and I think to myself, what are they doing to the world to subject us to this? We know that the result is infertility of our children. And we know there's obvious that something is going on that we are not being told. It is obvious. Depopulation agenda, I would believe it now. And what people were thinking years ago is really becoming quite credible to most people now. And you can say, yes, I know that. But what hope do we have? Well, I actually believe we have got a hope. And our hope that I believe, what is our future? And I believe our only hope is God. I believe that the Bible tells us that we're going to go through some incredible times. The Bible talks about prophecies that predicts different things that's going to happen. In Matthew 24, in Mark 13, in Luke 21, the disciples came to Jesus and says, what's going to happen? What will be the signs of the ends of the world? And he actually spelled it out and he wrote them, and it's all listed there for us. But there are other books in the Bible, your prophetic books of Daniel and Revelation, and you have a lot in Isaiah, you have a lot in Jeremiah, and dotted throughout your Bible. But we're going to have wars, we're going to have rumours of wars. We're going to have earthquakes. We're going to have time of trouble such as the world has never seen. We're going to have famines. We're going to have pestilences. And I can see the scenario coming for that now, because the food supply is also all of a sudden being diminished. But there's going to be an economic crash there somewhere along. And do you know the Bible says that men's hearts will fail them because of fear? People will die because they're so frightened. We're also told that the sun will not shine. We are told that the moon will not shine. We are told that the heavens or the powers of heaven will be shaken. Now, what's that? I can't tell you. I've got some theories what I think it could be, but I don't know for sure. But when the powers of heaven are going to be shaken, there's going to be something dramatic happen. Some incredible things are happening, and we have to be ready, and we have to know that this is something that's going to come. Something that's going to come onto us. Christians, we are told, will be persecuted. They'll be hunted. They'll be told that, they'll be pushed out to the outer. They'll be hunted down. They'll be jailed. They will be beaten, whatever, and jailed. Many will be eventually martyred. And we're told then right at the end there'll also be signs and there'll be wonders in the sky. Miracles will be wrought. Yes, God's people will perform miracles, but there'll be an awful lot of miracles that are performed by Satan. Because he said he will come down with power and signs and lying wonders to deceive the world. Now, have you ever thought about, and the Bible tells us that Satan himself will come back and personate Christ. And people will think, oh, Jesus has come back. And did you know that? But the Bible says, did you know that he will go and he'll come in the same way? His feet will not touch the ground. So if you hear of anyone in the world who is walking around with their feet on the ground, you know that is an imposter. It's not Satan. That is Satan. It's not Christ. So these are the signs. We have to watch out and look out. We're also told not to get the mark of the beast. How many times people have said, oh, we mustn't get the mark of the beast. And some people say, oh, it's the vaccine. But did you know, I remember hearing years ago that some people thought the mark of the beast was the original bank card, 666. There has been many theories. Did you know the beast? Who is the beast? We have to know who the beast is. In Revelation 13, it talks about the beast that comes out of the sea with 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, remember, a beast is a kingdom or a political power. Okay, that's who the beast is. And so this kingdom is going to come out of the sea with 7 heads and 10 horns. But then later in Revelation 13, there's another beast that comes out of the land with 2 horns. Which beast is it? You can't get the mark of the beast of. We have to know. We have to read our Bibles and study for ourselves. And unless you're knowing this, you can't just say, oh, I think the mark of the beast is the vaccination, because I can assure you it is not. Not from my Bible study, because the beast is... I've just looked up a handful of texts in the Bible and I found 22 identifying points that actually tell me who the beast is. It's very clear once you see it, who this power is. We can't have this mark of the beast. But don't forget, you can't have we're told not to get the mark of the beast, and if you do get it, and if we don't get it, he says we won't be able to buy or sell, and you'll be put to death. That's the ultimate. That's down the track. But we are not to get that mark of the beast, and people say, I'm not going to get the mark of the beast. But then later on, earlier, in Revelation 7, it talks about the seal of God. You have to have the seal of God. Now, what is the seal of God? You can't just avoid the mark of the beast and think you're saved. You've also got to know what the seal of God, because they go hand in hand together. So there are so many things that we have to be ready for. We have to understand and we have to know. And I just believe that God is in control. There is no doubt in my mind. He has got the whole world in his hands, and he knows what's happening in this world. And it's not taking him by surprise. Absolutely not. But he's got, and his people, there will be, at the end of time, there were two people. There will be the saved and there will be the unsaved. You have to know which side you're on. And believe me, the saved will be in an absolute minority. A great minority. There will not be many people who are saved. So in the meantime, Jesus is telling you he loves you. And I wanted to share with you, you mightn't see it as clearly, but he loves you and he's looking for all of us. He wants to find us. And I love these pictures. I actually went online, and this painter, he painted them, and I bought them from him so I could show them to you. I just love them. Look at that one there. He holds you close to his bosom. And yet some of us he carries. And did you notice it's a black sheep? Okay, and you know what? There's an analogy in the Bible that talks about how God wants us to, like a hen protects the chickens. God says, come on, under my wings. I will protect you. I will completely protect you. And so that's our only hope. I know that. There is no other hope that we've got in the world. This is our only hope. So we have to know, because God wants us to give us eternal life. He wants to give us his love. He wants to give us his light. He wants to give us his truth. But we have to respond to it. And he's eventually going to come to take his people home. This is a painting that this guy did, which I bought too, and I just love that painting. You can see in the background Christ's coming, and all the people in their graves are being awake, are risen. They're being raised. Yet, as I said, he's got everything in control. So, enough of that. Back to our EMFs. I just believe that is our only hope. Next talk that I'm going to do, which is on the last Tuesday of the month, is going to be on gluten, glyphosate and GMOs. And by the way, we're going to have a lunch here after it. This is going to be in the morning, and we'll be finished around about 12, and then we'll get a lunch ready and we'll have a lunch. And you are invited to come, but if you're going to come, please put your name down. I need to know, because we need to know how many are going to come. The last Tuesday of the month. You'll just have to look. I can't remember. The last Tuesday in this month, which is whatever date, I can't tell you offhand. 10 a.m, yes. We're already working out the menu. Yes. Okay, and then our last talk from today, which is the first in August, is called Bombarded. There are many assaults on our health. Now, what happened years ago, I decided to get together as many causes of our breakdown of diseases as I could. And I found 26. And I want to share them with you. Amazing. It's not just... EMFs are one of them, but there's a lot of others too. Okay, so that brings us to an end of our talk today, and I'll let you have some questions. But I wanted Nola just prompted me on this. This is called, that's a mobile sleeve that you could pop your mobile phone in, which stops it from, because you won't get any mobile reception in there, but it's like a Faraday cage. You can't.
But if you put your phone on flight mode, isn't that the same? Don't you?
No, it will still get it. And as you see, when I show you this later and I walk around the room and we can see some of where our electromagnetic frequencies come from, where they are in the room. Because you'll find them like next to televisions, radio. This is let's just pick, I'll just see how it flashes through. There's lights on it. Now if I put it close to the television set, doesn't have any radio frequencies?
Go to the laptop.
Yes.
There you go. Not too bad.
Okay, so let's go back to the magnetic field. See, it doesn't have one. Yep, high magnetic and the electric field. But you can go to some of that power board down the bottom there, which I just put on. That beeps because it's got a magnetic electric field. So any questions?
Can I just say something about the bees?
Just hold on. Can we just have have your microphone? Yeah, just speak on, Nola. You go first, then we'll have this later.
Oh, you can hear me. Just talking about what you can do with. You've got the earthing mat.
Yes.
But a German man from Birkenstock Shoes was telling me that in Germany, and you can get it here, you can get little wrist straps when you're working in an office, and they've got a long lead and you connect yourself up to the earth in the office so you can walk around. So you should be able to get something like that here. But if you're in an office, you can have that earthing mat on your table near your keyboard and have one hand on it.
Yes? Okay.
Can I just give you an up-to-date on the bees?
Yes?
Right, we have 4,000 hives of bees. That's our business. So the government's keeping us informed with what's happening. So they have discovered that 22 lots of bees between Newcastle and the Blue Mountains has been affected by this new virus that they've detected. A shipment came in from to Melbourne. When the ship was on the sea, someone saw a bee. They did an investigation and found a swarm of bees, and they dealt with it right there and then. So by the time the ship got into Melbourne recently, they were all the Varroa virus was all dead. So they're very happy about that. No one in New South Wales is allowed to move their bees anywhere. The ones that are infected are having all their bees and equipment and some sheds all destroyed. So a phone call from a guy that's got a big company, bigger than ours, he is so distressed because you won't be able to have bees again for 3 to 5 years, because they reckon that's how long the contamination will be on your property or wherever the bees were.
What happened? Remember who was it? Albert Einstein says when the bees go, your Earth has only 4 or 5 years left.
Well, 62% of all the food that we have requires bees to pollinate. So there'll be quite a food shortage.
Yep.
The scary part is for all the beekeepers that pollination of almonds, all the pollination, we do lots of big pollination jobs, and the pollination jobs start in about 3 weeks on almonds, right? And the almond plantations are massive. So if New South Wales beekeepers aren't allowed to put their bees onto almonds and all the other things that we do, then it's going to be a catastrophe.
When did this virus appear?
Just about Wednesday, I think it was, last week.
They found it.
But I need to say, this is important, they've now, by doing all their tests and everything that they do, they realised that this like this bug thing, got into Australia probably about 15 months ago. And the reason they can tell is because of the seasons, and bees do different things in the hives on the different parts of the year in the seasons. So how it's developed and everything like that, they think about 15 months since it actually got into Australia, which means it's gone right out into into the forests. Newcastle, right down wherever it is. It could be anywhere, like over on the east coast. So people that have moved bees around Australia from over there, like my husband said, the genie's out of the bottle, and there's no way of putting it back in again. So we have no idea at this stage how serious, like what the outcome's going to be.
Well,
Can I have that? I did share a story from beekeepers in America. They actually they know about this viral thing, and they have treatment. Here in Australia, they will not allow the treatment. So they're killing the livelihood of beekeepers, and they're killing the bees, because this is part of the pandemic. This is part of the food shortages. Like in America, the cows are dying, all sorts of things. So there is not a cure, but the American beekeepers use this product on their bees all the time. But in Australia, no emergency thing for the beekeepers. So.
And varroa mite's been in New Zealand for 20 years.
And they're still going.
And what it does is it kills.
Go figure.
It kills the hives. So that's what it does. The varroa mite kills the bees. So the hives die out. So that's what happens. So if they've managed to work out how to keep the industry going in New Zealand, in America and Europe, then they should really, in Australia now, if they've researched it properly, they should really have it all in place how this is all going to play out. Yeah. But I agree totally with you. It's all part of the overall plan that they've got set up to, because if you can make a massive shortage of food, it pushes the prices and not everything else up that's going up in Australia and everywhere else. It's to bring the country, the world to its knees.
Yes.
And I agree with you, so that the Antichrist and that can all fall into place the way that they're planning it.
yes.
Okay, so who's next? Oh. There you go.
Anyone else want to talk?
My husband's an electrical engineer, so you can imagine the amount of electrical stuff we've got on in our house. We've got the electric floor heating and everything. So I've got an earthing pillowcase and an earthing mat on my bed, but the thing is I've been plugging it into a power board, which I didn't realise that the power boards were so bad. Which is just like on the ground right next to my bed, in between my bed and my bedside table. So would you think, Kaye, that trying to plug it into an extension cord with a double adapter on the end, do you think maybe that would be better? Because
I think it's going to... Test. Yeah, I think you really need to find a test.
I've got an EMF voltmeter.
Use your meter and just check which is best. I can't tell you.
Yeah, that's all right. And we've got the LED lights, they've all fallen off the back of a truck. And, so we've got so much cheap. But it's like talking to a dentist talking about amalgam fillings. He just doesn't seem to think that there's much wrong with it all. But anyway, I'm fighting for a better
I understand. House. It's hard when you're alone and you feel like you've had a light switched on and nobody else can see what you're seeing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. They don't want to know.
I've got another place where you can get products to help
Yes.
with, it's called Ergone Effects.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, and they have, you can get
How do you spell it?
Orgone,
Orgone.
Right.
It's an Australian company.
Yes.
And they have aprons, they have blankets. That's to help with the EMFs.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about earthing stuff, but they've got stuff that you, if you need to have your Wi-Fi on because you work from home, they've got products that you can put around your router, your Wi-Fi, things to sit your phone on, things to put your phone in.
Yeah.
There's a lot of products, and they're not, well, I wouldn't call them very expensive, because if it's good for your health,
but they are expensive.
and don't upgrade your phones to like the Apple 12 and 13. They're the worst.
Yeah, it's very interesting because when I was really sharing with this, some of the people I'm sharing with, one lady came in with the latest phone and hers was incredibly high, you know, with her EMF reading.
And I've noticed, like, I've got an 8. Apparently, they reckon that Apple 8 is okay. But since the cover broke, I can't get a new cover for it because they don't make them anymore. I've got to be very careful. I don't hold it like that. I usually have it sitting on something if I need to use it, and
Yes.
I don't put it up to the ear or anything. But if I am holding it, my hands tingle.
Yeah.
So it's just a thought.
Okay, someone else was here, just holding. Here.
Have you heard of Tesla plates?
Yes.
Yes. And that, you know, they have a house plate and they have a 5G plate, and they're not cheap either, but they do. So they won't take it away completely, but they change the way your body absorbs the energy. So if it's a bad, dirty, whatever it is, then it'll be like this, and your body only wants that. So what it will do is change this to more like that.
Okay.
So it's not going to take it away, but it will be just easier on your body. Yeah.
Just back here.
Kaye, I have a CPAP machine that I sleep with the thing right beside my head. And of course the plug thing's on the floor.
Yep.
You're making me nervous now. I'll go back to
I
the
really can't tell you much. I think that's when you'd really have to look at grounding yourself in bed. Grounding sheet in your bed. That's a thought. I can't tell you any more than that. What do you think, Nola? You're more grounding. Did you ever get a grounding sheet? Yeah. And not only that, it's very hard. I'm looking online, some of the things that I'm sharing with you and talking about are out of stock, out of stock, out of stock. Everything's out of stock. So if you want to buy things, get them now because they'll be very shortly, they'll be out of stock.
Just that I'm not much mentally good in the daytime if I don't have my CPAP
Fair
machine.
enough. You need your CPAP machine, and I understand.
Yeah.
But my suggestion is just grounding. I can't think of anything else because you
Well,
need
walk
to be
around the
grounded.
yard with no shoes on.
You can buy Faraday fabric, which is it's a fabric that stops the you know how.
I'll put that around the machine.
And yeah, make just a round circle. You can put elastic around the top. Just tie it up.
I'll
Yeah.
work something out now.
Yeah, think of something like that. Yeah, you can buy fabric, and it's not cheap.
It isn't, but it's better than.
Where do I get that from?
You'd go online. You have to from these places which we just mentioned, those EMF places.
Can you use tin foil?
Look, I have looked. I would doubt it. Okay, I would really doubt it. I've tried using tinfoil, and I felt that it's not as good as it should be. But
It's better than nothing.
Yep.
Can I just say that it depends on the frequency. If you're using it for just for the mains frequency, which is 50 hertz, you need to have a ferrous metal
Oh,
for
yes.
it to actually
Yeah.
affect it. So that's what the Faraday cage is. The tin foil is only ferrous metals, which is like steel. So you need to, fly wire may do your job, where you get the metal fly wire, not the aluminium, not the plastic. There's actually a metal fly wire you can get. It's got a powder coating. So there's different things you can use, but it has to be hard metal, and then that has to be earthed.
Yep.
So that stops that radiation.
Having a heart attack here.
Well, what's the device beside your bed?
CPAP. Yeah, a breathing machine.
Oh, yeah, which is a ventilator.
Yep.
Is that made of metal, the box itself?
No, but it would be the electric.
Plastic, yes. Some of them used to be, older ones, they were all metal, and you could have just earthed that, no problem. But it's only an electric motor because it's pressurising, isn't it? So that could be just earthed itself, so it shouldn't be.
Just something I came across. When you're looking to buy things, you have to be very, very careful that you're not being conned. There was a test a guy did, and he had, you could buy these little things that you plugged into the plug, and that would protect your house, kind of like a Stetzer filter. When they pulled it apart, there was nothing inside. It was a block of plastic with a plug attached to it. That was it. And they were selling it for quite a nice little sum. So you have to really research what you're buying, and you have to see the proof and the data that it actually does work. And I know I follow a guy in France, an Englishman who lives in France. He's got Lloyd Burrell, he's got a site, electricsense.com, and he would not recommend any product for years and years and years because of this. And then he's just recently recommended one as a pendant, and the other one is called Blue Shield, BLU Shield, not BLUE, BLU Shield, which you can get in Australia, but it is expensive to have those things. So just to be warned.
Also, I've got earthing shoes, and they're terrific. They look like runners, sneakers. For those people who've got those little containers, packages to put your phone in, if you're having trouble getting one online, can you get one in Albury Wodonga anywhere? Okay.
I don't know. I got mine online. I can't tell you. And that cost, I think, about $60 just for that. They're not cheap.
No, I found that out.
Cover for, to stop for my laptop, and that was about $250.
A laptop cover, she said, was $250.
If you're measuring the EMFs with that little gizmo, the EMFs are usually most noticeable where the motor is. Like if you're looking at your laptop, it'll be on the keyboard exactly where that little fan is, the end where the little fan is, where the electricity's coming in. That's where you measure it. With your other computers, it might be coming from behind the computer, not in front of the computer. And there's just, you need to sort of go online and look at some of these websites and then just follow their advice and learn things for yourself.
Yep. Okay, any more comments? Well, that has been one.
Marathon.
Yes, I know. I actually, what happened last night, I was just going through it and I thought, I found a whole lot of slides from one of my other talks, which I actually inserted in there. It wasn't going to be as long as that, so I added those to it, and I thought, I hope it's not too long. But then I thought, you know what, you're here, you need to know it. That was my philosophy.
I should add one little... is this going in? I should add my little story. A number of years ago, I had extremely high blood pressure, like 170, 180, 190, 200. And that was when I was resting inside, right? I used to go outside and garden, and I'd come in and take my blood pressure, and it'd be 128/80. I'd sit there talking to my girlfriend on my cordless phone, and my blood pressure would be 180, right? So this was how EMFs were affecting me, and I learned out I'm hypersensitive to electromagnetic frequencies. So as soon as I'm around anything like that for any length of time, my blood pressure goes sky high. I'm still wondering why every time I go to a doctor, my blood pressure is 170. I'm at home and it's 112, 120, maybe 132. But when I go to the doctors, it's 170 every time.
And remember that chair you were sitting into?
That was a powerised chair.
Powerised chair.
Yeah,
Be careful of them. They are very.
And I've used the Gauss meter to test other people, and I found some of the mobile phones were reasonably good, and some were extremely bad. Right, it just depended. Your another one was your microwave oven, and I've got a microwave oven only to heat my heat packs, but I put it in another room, and I never stay in that room while I'm heating the heat pack.
Yeah.
Because you need distance, but yeah.
So be careful, like just when you're using microwaves, and I don't recommend using a microwave, whatever. I've only got one for heat packs too. Great for heat packs, but not for cooking. You know, just remember what your grandmother did, you know, your mother and your grandmother did.
They don't allow microwaves in Russia. You're not allowed to have a microwave in Russia.
Do you hear that? Not allowed to have a microwave in Russia. That was years ago, yes, possibly now, but I think Russia is ahead of us in some of the things. Any other points before we close off? Well, as I said, it wasn't totally comprehensive and everything. There is so much, and I found it quite difficult to get what I did together, but we've got to know, and even if you just learned some of the things today, that's been beneficial to you. So thank you for coming. We'll see you next time.